Welcome to the Retail Reality Show.
Welcome everyone to a very special episode of the Retail Reality Show today live with LIGANOVA. Actually, it's the 30th celebration, 30th birthday of this great company, and we are here live in Stuttgart. So maybe a round of applause, please. Cool. Today we have a great story. We have an amazing lineup. We have Meike, we have Julia, but before we get to there, and that story, Nicolas, how are you today?
I am quite good. This is a perfect audience. Everyone seems to be cheerful. I think there's some Aperol Spritz involved, which is good. So we're happy to be here. It's really cool to do this in front of an audience. It's always fun for us because there's more of an interaction. There's some vibe. So we're happy to be here. Yeah, it's all about community, and the community is growing. So we put stickers on your chairs. So just spread the word if you like us, and also share the love and subscribe. Excellent.
Cool. Today it's all about retail, it's about digital, it's about AI, and we have some great guests. So on the one hand, we have Julia Bischof, actually working right now at Creuset, but I know Julia from my past, where I worked a lot with her at Thomas Sabo. Julia, why don't you quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Nino. I'm glad to be here. So I'm Julia. I've been working in retail all my life, ever since I left university. Different brands, different setups, from fashion to, you mentioned it, jewelry, and now...
Cast iron?
I don't even want to say cookware. It's
Cast iron?
premium lifestyle.
Very good.
At Le Creuset. Well, depending on where you're from, there's different ways to pronounce it. Yeah. I've gotten used to pronouncing it the English way, so Le Creuset. Yeah. But yeah, actually it's a French company, so Le Creuset. Yeah, on the retail journey with Le Creuset.
Very iconic brand. So we had a chat earlier, and Julia shared that this is on the list for the Time 100 most influential brands globally. So, but we will get to that in a second. And we also have Meike Hartelust. So I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Very good pronunciation. Yeah.
Managing Director, LIGANOVA Netherlands, correct?
Yes, correct.
Cool. Maybe just very quick. What are you
also,
doing
very quick introduction. So I head up the LIGANOVA part in the Netherlands. And well, I don't think I have to explain what LIGANOVA exactly does. I have a background also in retail marketing. I worked on the brand side as well with Levi's and Nike, and now on the agency and production company side with LIGANOVA. So very happy to be here.
Great. Julia, so as I just mentioned, Le Creuset is a very iconic brand, one of the most influential brands in the world. And I know you're coming from a wholesale world. So there's always this retail firewall. You have great products, but you're always dependent on the retailer. So you typically don't have the direct connect to the customers who share stories, who love community, where we get to in a second, also in a retail environment. Where would you say is the brand today where you took over from a retail standpoint and overall in your direct-to-consumer journey? Where are you at the moment?
I would say we are still quite close to the starting point, to be fair. As you mentioned, throughout most of its 100-year history, Le Creuset has been working as a wholesale brand. Le Creuset has been operating stores for quite some time, actually, for having been a cookware brand. The brand and the operations were always driven by wholesale experts. The stores were just a nice add-on. But this has now changed a lot, especially since I joined the company. So direct to consumer, not just physical retail, but also online, of course, is at the heart of our strategy and is very much in the focus. And over the last 2.5 years, we've already achieved a lot, but we have still a very long roadmap.
And what are your unique challenges because I think in the preparation we discussed you have 50-50 roughly own stores. Where are your challenges today?
Well, actually that balance is where we want to be. Wholesale is still a very important part of the business, and I hope it will be also in the future. But of course we can use our own retail network or direct-to-consumer network to test and try things, see what works for us, see what doesn't work for us, relays back to our wholesale customers, and maybe help them also drive retail concepts that are fit for the future. but also vice versa. Some of them are actually doing quite good stuff out there.
Like a consulting company for wholesalers. Maybe you can even leverage LIGANOVA to scale that. Just, why not?
Cool. Well, I think it's one of the most exciting stories I've heard in a while, and one of the most exciting brand stories. Like, who in the audience does not know Le Creuset? That's a good reaction. Who of you guys owns Le Creuset?
Oh yeah.
It's quite a large
Some
share.
chefs.
That's quite a good share, yeah.
With a brand that is so connected to emotionality, I think if you build a brand store, you would want people that just cross the street, you would want them to see it and feel the urge to go in. So what's the magnet that you guys are building? How do you choose sort of like, I don't know, what you guys put in your windows? How do you choose experiences that really make people turn around and say, hey, let's go to that store, that's cool. So how do you decide and what do you do?
Well, we've embarked on a strategy of actually testing and learning currently. So we're probably not where we want to be yet. But we're trialing different store locations, different concepts, furniture, different experiences, also different local marketing activities and activations, and just to see what works for us. For being a, okay, I don't want to repeat it, cookware brand, we actually drive a lot of newness as well in our product portfolio. So obviously our windows will be showing whatever we have in our portfolio that's brand new, to attract that first view. But obviously coming in isn't just about the window. It's about a connection with a brand these days. It's not about the products. I mean, you can get our products everywhere, just as any other product potentially. Plus, none of us needs anything. We have everything that we need. We want things. And we want an experience if we go for physical stores. We want a connection with a person, with a real person. And I think that's what we need to drive even more in the future, to build our community of people who love to cook and to eat, and bring them together in our stores.
You said in our prep discussion that actually your brand is, and actually the room here shows that's true. It's actually attracting quite a lot of young customers. So you would expect it's a heritage brand. It's like an expensive cookware brand. So you would say, okay, your demographic is 40 plus, whatever. But like in this room, I don't see anyone 40 plus. So in the end, no, there's quite a lot of young people. And you also said there's Gen Z. How do you guys address it? How do you find out about it? And like sort of how do you go about it?
Well, I mean, the traditional way of owning a Le Creuset is probably because you get it passed down by your parents or your grandparents. That's often a starting point into the brand. But obviously, we also have lots of other products, not just the cast iron casserole. So there's a lot of different ways to enter the brand. We also test and try different formats and ways of communication for a younger target group. One of these formats that we are establishing across Europe right now is what we call our factory-to-table events.
Nice.
That's interesting.
So these consist of like a whole weekend of delving into the Le Creuset lifestyle, the Le Creuset world, with great products at great prices, but also the experience around them. So demonstrating our products, music, food, drinks, anything, and the community building. Even the community building among the consumers. So once they leave the venue, they start sharing what they got. Some of them start swapping stuff. It's really, really interesting. And we've discovered that this is a perfect entry into our brand because customers come back for more, not just to the next event, but also to our regular D2C channels.
I mean, I heard community. I heard exposure to the brand, and also, especially if you share a whole weekend with the brand, you hopefully love afterwards, or you already love, and you just get more of it. Meike, I think that's also your home turf. I think the bells should start to whistle when you hear that. Maybe can you share what's your point of view on that, also based on your history with iconic brands like Nike or Levi's, and what do you do today at LIGANOVA?
Now, yeah, I think what probably also most people who listen to this podcast and are in the room know is that there's a longing for the real life connection between amongst us, and going beyond the transactional, let's say. So find ways to do that, to show the brand. Well, you're clearly very much working on that side of the business, and Le Creuset is a brand that really lends itself for it as well, because it is a very emotional brand, I would say, and it touches on all these senses, etc. So there's a lot that we could also do for you. But apart from that, I think a nice example is what we actually have here, an operated brand space. And what happens there is that it's really a curated space. So it's a space that has an ongoing, continuous new program and connects with the community or with people interested in the brand, not necessarily the people who will now buy, but people interested in the brand. So we not only operate it from a staffing point of view and from a design point of view, the space is also redone every 3 months, and so with a new design, and new design, new windows, etc. But there are activations happening in the store that help build the community, build the brand connection, connect at an emotional level. That is an example of something that we do for a brand. I don't know if that was what you were looking for.
It's like a new aspect I just heard is programming the store. So that it's interesting every week, every month that you go in, you experience something new next to you.
And even like programming on, like your weekend is an example, but if it's making coffee, a workshop varying to really something, of course, about the car or the details, or you can name it, what is interest, what's at the heart, at the core of your community, of the audience you want to reach, and you do something with that, of course. So you create genuine connections with your audience, and it should by no means be superficial or just done because you need to do something. It should really be rooted within the brand and resonate with the audience you try to connect with.
Authentic.
Yeah, authentic, of course. But that almost become a bit hollow words. We all say genuine or authentic, etc. And you almost don't believe it anymore. But it is, if you really know what your brand is. And again, in this case of Le Creuset, there's so much to it, to the stories, and there's so much. I mean, if it's the cooking itself, if it's recipes, if it's the factory, I think in France, and the way to make it, there's so much to tell that if you do that in the store, and I think what is nice about the store is that it actually allows you as a brand to have a true connection with a person, an in-person connection, and that goes beyond the transactional again. Although I also have to say it's super important to create this holistic consumer experience or customer experience so that your brand is accessible everywhere. Because especially if I think of a Creuset pen, I rather don't walk around with it when I buy it in the city. No, I would rather have it sent home.
That's why we do send it home.
So you do want to have the personal connection, and for Le Creuset to know what is my thinking, who am I, how do they convince me, how do they reach me. But in the end, I don't want to carry the pen home.
But that's a great segue to technology. You're talking about technology. So basically, you guys are, let's say, physical experience experts. But nonetheless, in almost every store you walk in today, there's a lot of technology. Yeah. So how do you feel? We've been talking about that. We talked about what are, like everyone wants AI cases these days. I mean, like there was just a whole presentation about AI in the other room. In the end, everyone talks about it, but in store, there's not a lot that actually consumer facing yet. There's a lot of stuff on operational excellence, etc. But consumer facing, like when it comes to technology in stores, what's your position? Do you use it as a tool? Is it something that you see as a prerequisite?
The word prerequisite, I find a difficult word. So it's a given; it needs to happen. Is that?
Yeah. So do you see it as a factor that's a must, or do you see it as a tool that you only implement if there is a use case for it?
I think it's a factor that is a must in the end. Even though, of course, I think the most important bit is the personal connection and the in real life experience. But I've been talking with you before, for example, and I'm not naming the brand, but for a footwear sports brand that we work for, we have proposed a few things that are touching on this. And you have to think of an activation or a pop-up either in-store or in front of the store or in the shopping center where there is a store where you can, for example, create a dome with LED lighting, so it's already quite vibrant. There is this video recording camera on a robot arm there, and you can create moves, you can test the shoes, you can test clothes, you can show yourself in this area, and you can get the video, and then you can post it again online. Or you can think of repurposing this dome for example, a nail studio or a hair studio, or in this case, a product trial or upcycling products, or making something out of it. But we also think of an AI agent. So we also talked about that, I think, before. The AI agent becomes more and more important. And what we see, for example, with this brand, they have all VM looks and stylist looks, etc. But if you have your own clothes already, if an AI agent can give you advice what to buy or what would suit you well, or if you could see it in an AR environment, etc., that would help you buy or decide or create your own image. And the same is for performance. So in the sports industry, it's performance driven. So what is the right shoe for you, or what's the right racket or football? And there is things like personalization or customization. So we see on a lot of levels, the digital part, and then of course also still the use of socials. So there is a connection. If you have these experiences like a weekend away with a group of people, but also the in-store activations, etc. What is nice is if your audience, your community posts online and they create a bigger community again.
Exactly, just to, let's say, scale the store and the experiences you see. But Julia, I mean, we are working together since a few years, and omnichannel has always been a topic with the jewelry brand. Thomas Sabo, we were working together. Now with an iconic cookware or lifestyle brand. What's your point on omnichannel? What's, let's say, what's hygiene, what's must in these days, and where would you say a brand or a retailer can differentiate?
I think our task is to make the shopping experience as easy for the customer as possible. And whatever tech plays into that is very welcome. And yes, there's lots of pieces in like omnichannel that lend themselves very much to it. But first and foremost, I'm always thinking about the consumer. What makes sense for me if I want to go to buy to a store, to a Le Creuset store in this particular case, of course. And as we are such an emotional product, we really don't want to overdo tech. So for us, tech is kind of to stay in the background, being supportive, and we're not pointing it right into customers' faces, just because it doesn't match our brand. It might be completely different with someone else.
So maybe just to pick that example, not so much an in-store agent where you can type or talk, because you're in the store, you should talk to the associate.
You should talk to a person,
and
yes.
The person has a CRM on an iPad with 3 icons that they consume in 2 seconds, and then give a better advice, like that type of...
Exactly. So anything that's supporting the employees to take away that tedious administrative workload, which is not their strength anyway. I mean, they're in the store because they want to interact with people. They want to sell. Yeah. They don't want to plan a rota. They don't want to follow up on their KPIs with a super complicated report. So we need to make it bite-sized, easy and very quick to consume, and put the customer in the center again. Because, they're just too distracted with too many other tasks these days.
I have a question around that. When it comes to omnichannel, especially since you are sort of, let's say, a D2C plus brand. So it's like, let's say, wholesale D2C. I don't know the percentage. I also don't want to know it. It's more about like you have both angles. And then you just told us about this beautiful event where you create a community. In many cases, it's a bit difficult to maintain that community once sort of you hand over a product to a wholesaler, regardless of whether you have nice, I don't know, a nice decoration for the point of sale, it usually ends. Is that something you're talking to your wholesalers about, whether they can actually include that kind of community from your side also into their offering?
We're starting to do that, yes, because I think it's a very valuable thing to do, actually, for both parties. I mean, we all have our customers, we all have the products, we all have our insights, and why not share? And just, make a common community.
Makes total sense, yeah.
It's not a given. I mean, in my reality, I see lots of retailers and also brands who, because in the end, it's about sharing customer data also. I mean, those concepts are out there. You have a strong brand, you have a retailer. If they add their capabilities, 1 + 1 is 3. But actually, when it comes down to sharing that consumer data with each other, because there's a shared open loyalty program, I mean, given you sorted out GDPR and all the data privacy and protection laws, I mean, that's a very modern view that you bring to the table.
Yeah, and definitely not easy to bring to life.
Exactly. What I would be interested in, because Meike also shared a lot of examples where you, let's say, extend the reach of the store, you share on social, like you said, you amplify brands' KPIs like brand reach and those things, which are a little bit harder to measure. But when it comes to actually measuring the store, I would say in the end, if your CFO calls you and say, hey, and asks you the question, hey, Julia, how much turnover was last week in our factory sale or in the brand store we opened at a very high rent, how would you say you measure the store today and in the future?
Well, currently, to be fair, we're still focusing a lot on the classical retail KPIs. Sales, ATV, conversion rate, UPT, anything that we all know. And yes, they do tell us a lot about what's happening in the store. They tell us a lot about which team is able to actually bring our strategy to life in the best way. And to take away these learnings and multiply them to the other teams. But yes, of course, you're right. It's for me and my team, it's about diving deeper into the metrics and find those additional KPIs that will matter in the future. Yeah, that's a question of resources and tools as well. So there's a lot of tech involved again, and I want to be open. We still do have a little bit of a way to go there.
Can I say so? What we have seen in the past years, and it's not for Le Creuset, but with some brands, is especially during COVID, of course, direct-to-consumer online sales were super important, measurable, all went up sky high. And then after COVID, everything was set for the online sales because it's measurable and with the KPIs in store as well. But actually, the connection with the brand got lost in some cases. There are some great examples of this. And investing in stuff that you can actually measure is not necessarily investing in the right things to do. So even though you can measure it, it can be something that performs on a much lower level than something that you do based more on intuition or insights or risk-taking, etc. And I think where the world should go, it's big words, no, not the world, but I think where we also as consumers, let's say, and also the younger generations want to go is about genuine connections. I buy the product because I genuinely believe in the brand and I feel connected with the brand. And then you can measure things like indeed foot traffic, but also the dwell time in store or event participation or social media engagement. And then, of course, the sales uplift and customer data growth and stuff like that. But I do think, maybe it's wishful thinking, but that we should step away from thinking that what you can measure is always the best thing to do, because actually I really believe that if you dare to take a risk and do stuff that touch on the emotional level, you have a long-term customer.
It's a fair assumption. I think it's a very different question, or you will get very different answers if you ask a brand or a retailer when you ask this question. Like
let's ask the retailer.
Well, from my perspective, I'd love to do that, but if you work on retailer margins and on retailer costs, it's super hard to do something which seems like a leap of faith or something that's an emotional connection, because if it doesn't pay off, it actually might result in you not being profitable for quite some time, which is not something most retailers these days can sustain. Yeah. So I think it's a bit of a tricky question, but what I would be interested in when it comes to your activations, especially like let's say the more innovative spaces, let's talk about the footwear example you gave, how much do the brands invest in measuring the effect of these stores, and what do they do? Do they just look at social, social listening, or what do they do to measure the effect of what you guys are doing?
What I think is, what I also know from my time at Levi's and Nike, etc., some things you do as an investment and not to get directly the return on investment. You make the return somewhere else. So yeah, the return on investment, how do you measure it indeed? How do you know what it does for the brand? That's exactly what I just meant. Those are more intangible things to measure. This is not the right word. Soft things. But in answer to your question, what we do, for example, with activations that we did on a much smaller scale, so in-store or pop-ups, etc., you do indeed look at participation rates, traffic, member subscriptions, like do people become member, do they test products, etc. So you measure those things. Does that give an answer?
Yeah, I think so. It's just interesting because I think like one of the questions that are going to follow up is around the future. What do we want? What do we want to test? And of course, I'm from the retailer side, and I'm especially also from the digital side, meaning I run a large-scale digital business. For me, KPIs are almost everything, because if I don't do it right on a very slim EBIT margin, I'm just going to be unprofitable in an instant if I do it wrong. So this is sort of the basis of everything I have to decide, or I can decide, needs to be data. On the other hand, I totally believe in community. I believe in these soft factors, and I'm always intrigued to hear how people are actually trying to have a look, have an idea of whether they're succeeding. Let's not put it into hard words. Let's not put it into a KPI. But like if we ask you, for example, how do you see that your brand is trending? How do you perceive that? Is there something that you look at Google Trends or social trends? Like how do you actually see that Gen Z is loving your brand?
Well, mainly we see it because we see them in our stores. We see them at our events.
Nice.
So of course there's a lot of things you can measure, but at the end of the day, it's also about not only the hard facts, as you said, it's also about soft factors. It's about customer feedback, social listening, you mentioned it. I mean, if people talk a lot about you, and hopefully positively, but even if they don't, I mean, we had a really, really good case of one of these events we hosted in the UK, and it was a complete chaos because so many people came. The parking situation was awful. The police had to come. We were all over the news, but not in a positive way. It was still great for the brand.
Yeah, and often I think you see the sales increase online when you do an in real life activity, no? That's at least what we hear from the brands we work for.
Yeah, and we see the long-term trend, of course. So yes, of course, sometimes you have to take this leap of faith and just test something without knowing beforehand if it's going to pay off. So far, we've probably been also lucky, I don't know. But we are seeing in the long-term trend that it does pay off what we're doing.
And if I can come back to something you said earlier, I understand the difference between a retailer and a brand, but I think for you being the retailer, it's super important the brand does their job well, because you sell actually the brand, no? So that is where you benefit also, hopefully, as a retailer. Yeah.
No, definitely, it makes sense. I think it's a hand-in-hand game, and also I don't think that there is an exact science to it. So I think all the approaches are very valid. I think that's also why we love to combine different viewpoints. Nino works in the software industry essentially, or in a tech provider. I come from the department store space. You guys also work for very different companies. It's always super interesting to combine these different perspectives on things. So since we have a bit of time, let's dive into the people part of things, because that I think is an interesting segue. We've talked about technology, we've talked about community, we've talked about events. How do people play into that? And maybe it's a question for the two of you. Like for you, Julia, what do you do to train these? And how do you find them? Are they ambassadors, or today are they more sales associates that are driven by the KPI of selling more? How do you find them? And then from your perspective, when it comes to your activations, it's probably also people that need to be trained, that need to be aware of what the brand is doing, or other brands are giving sort of these people to you so you can make it happen.
All right. So to answer my part of the question, we are convinced that our strength is actually the human warmth and the connection between the brand and our colleagues. We are a family-owned business, and we actually really all feel being part of a family, which is, I think, a very rare thing, because many companies talk about, oh, we're all a big, happy family, but not very often it's really the truth. What I've come to see with Le Creuset, it actually is. And of course, that doesn't mean you don't need to get the basics right. I mean, of course, we all want to make a decent living. But our strength is in our relationship with our colleagues, and also in making everybody be seen and heard. Treat people as people, not as numbers. Make sure they all have the possibility to actually play an active role in the company. And that's when they will become ambassadors and not just salespeople.
Cool. CVs to Julia at LIGANOVA.
Yeah, I think for me it's a little bit more difficult to answer this question because we do indeed activations, and we also facilitate in finding the hosts of the activations, etc. But often that's really a joint effort with the brand, or the brand is actually organizing that part because it's so important that it's the true brand DNA that's being passed over to the user or the consumer. So I'm not sure if I can answer this.
No, the reason why I asked to make it more clear is often, or what happens sometimes, you see these beautiful flagship stores that are designed in a wonderful way, but then you walk in and then there's no sales associate, or you walk into you walk into a tech paradise where everything is interacting with you, but then you try to find somebody that tells you something about the brand and they don't exist. So my question was more, is that something as a factor that you discuss with your clients as well, like how many people should stand in that space and how should they interact? That was more the question.
We would love to discuss that, and it's not always up to us. It varies by brand and how they are organized, and if our role is a role where we can influence that or we have a say in that, to be honest. This is obviously, I think, what we believe in, and also if you look at what we discussed before, this is where we feel the whole in real life experience and connection with the potential consumer or community is super important, and that starts with your first interaction with a person. So yeah, I think we're all aligned, but I cannot say that we are instrumental in organizing these things.
So it's a task for the brands, which also makes sense. I mean, in the end,
Or, I mean, the whole agency world is also changing. Maybe that's also value add. You could ship as a, let's say, another stream of value, like retail as a service. You're not just creating a physical space, but also bring and train the knowledgeable people.
That is very much what we like to do.
Business development in real time. Very good.
Sorry, it's very obvious. I'm Dutch, eh?
Just looking a little bit at the time. So what we discussed a lot about the reality. We heard components of a successful store, community, brand, or exposure to the brand. Meike shared a lot about KPIs, and Julia. Looking a little bit ahead in the last part of this recording, what would you say, Julia, are store formats of the future that work? You mentioned pop-ups, you had that factory-to-table example. What would you think we would see in 5 years' time?
Well, if I could build like the Le Creuset store of my dreams, it would probably not be a store in the traditional sense of the word. I would see something where you really immerse yourself in the world of Le Creuset. You can try our products, you can get food that was cooked and will be served in our products. So you can just like really get into the whole experience. Yes, the buying will happen some point down the road, maybe not even that day. But I really think this experiential part of retail is super important and will stay. And that's what we need to take into account when thinking about our store concepts. Not all of our stores, of course. I mean, some of them are still like more transactional. If we think about like outlet stores, for example, they will always be around. I mean, they're super successful, actually, to be fair. And that's a different way of shopping, and it's a different expectation that you have when you go there. So for us, it's also a matter of differentiating between the different concepts. There's the factory-to-table event concept, then there's the outlet stores that are more transactional, but even still need an element of inspiration. And then there's we call them signature boutiques, because the products we sell there are called signature, the signature line, where we offer the full brand experience. But even within these, maybe there's differences between a store that's located in a, shopping mall or a high street format, a flagship store. So for us, we're really, really working a lot right now on differentiating the different formats actually, and then making a clear concept of each of them.
What you just said kind of triggered me, and I have to maybe also share my personal dream for the Le Creuset store. Why don't you do a restaurant or collaborate with a very hot chef, doesn't need to be a Michelin star chef.
Or local, because you want to build local community.
People are having images of a hot chef now.
Okay,
you know?
now it starts.
Yeah, it would work as well.
Maybe you can.
Well, maybe both.
Who is the hottest chef in Amsterdam?
There is one actually.
see
But, yeah,
opportunities.
there's an influencer chef who is pretty. Yeah. Anyways.
Okay, so let's call him or her and have the first Le Creuset.
Absolutely agree. My dream is a French bistro because we're French.
Cool. Now we are talking.
But yeah, like how about for you? What would be the dream store you've never designed, or even you have designed, or you guys have designed? Is there something that you think that would be cool?
Now, yeah, maybe it's not as tangible as you're now looking for. I'm going to give a different answer. Sorry, no. What I really believe in is the stores as media, the concept of stores as media. And if I go back to my time at Nike, I remember that I was part of the brand team and the brand marketing team. And retail marketing was really at the bottom of the food chain. It was really not important. So you had, of course, above the line, and those were the cool guys. And then at one point I came and I did my thing. I think stores as media, seeing it as media, that becomes more and more important for all the reasons that we have already mentioned, the in-real-life experience, the real, genuine connection. It's a need that started because we're so online and so connected to our phone that we now realize what we really want is the in-real-life experience. And I see a few elements for a store like that. So the store as an immersive or experience, or as a brand space. Focus on hospitality and exclusivity if it's a high-end brand, or a special community building. Technology seamlessly integrated and enhances the experience. And then indeed the staff as a primary media channel, and we have been discussing that as well. And and then I had a few guiding principles that I thought of. That is, you need to inspire and don't just sell. That is important. You celebrate heritage and quality. Quality is an important one, I think. Values, we just heard it in another talk today. Values are becoming more and more important because we've lost them, in all fairness. Engage all senses, and that's so nice of the Le Creuset example, because the senses there are the obvious, and you can think of smell, you can think of touching, food, eating, tasting, etc., and build the community. Now those, but I would go for your store as well, yeah, and I would be perfectly happy if we could support in that, yeah.
Cool. So I think we are at the end of our podcast, and we always ask the same question to our audience. So you have 15 seconds with a fictitious retail CEO. What would be your pitch, Julia? What do they need to do?
Never forget that they are a customer as well, and think with the eyes of the customer. I think that's the most important thing, and that's the one thing that will set you apart and really also make your store staff understand what you're wanting from them. Because I've seen it too many times that the strategies there are like this and the store staff would go there. But putting yourself back in the shoes of the customer helps.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
Isn't it impressive how this advice is still valuable and valid in the year 2025? It's so easy to lose that along the way, and we always perceive that or experience that ourselves when we go to stores, that often stores or retailers or brands lose their eye for the customer. So yes, word. You heard the applause. Yeah. But now, Meike.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to add to that. No, I think that is the key. If you start with the customer, then that is the most important aspect. And then I would also like to say, but I'm not saying people don't have it, but find the joy in taking risk and exploring the new. And what is it? While still looking at the old, as in, I think, also 20 years ago, I think Vans in the UK, in London, had a beautiful community space that they operated for 10 years that was highly functional, and the bands were playing there. You could always for free go there, and Vans was operating this. That's still relevant, I think. You just have to put the digital layer, the technology layer to it, but really, cut the bullshit on only the numbers. Yeah.
That was That was a long elevator ride.
Yeah. Well, I keep them.
Okay, nothing to add. So
Yes.
I think we close it out. Thank you very much, Julia, and thank you very much, Meike. So I had a lot of fun, learned a lot of new stuff. What about you, Nicolas?
Oh, I loved it. So follow LIGANOVA and Le Creuset along their journey. I think like the proposition of you guys when it comes to experience in retail is fabulous. The proposition of you guys when it comes to cooking, I speak from experience, is also fabulous. And that leaves us with one more task. We just heard people cheer for another like whatever presentation, which obviously did not matter. So we need a cheer to the end so that we have something on our record. So can we have a grand round of applause for everyone here? And thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.